Welcome to the Bros Talking Soccer podcast, where three brothers generally talk about what's happening in American and European soccer. But it is day 8 of the 2019 World Cup, and that's what we're going to be talking about here. My name is Dave Kniddle. I'm the oldest Kniddle brother. My two brothers are off doing things and living their life, and we're fortunate to have Matt Lefler, I'm going to call you a women's soccer expert at this point, Matt, on. And so we're going to chat about the games today. Matt, hello. How you doing today?
I'm awake, Dave.
That is good. That's half the battle, it's just being awake, especially for us on the West Coast, because we're both on the West Coast, got to get up pretty early for these matches.
Every day.
Yes. Okay, so before we get into the matches, we're a part of the Big Heads Media Network. If you're into podcasts, they have, I counted this morning, I think 50 different podcasts on there, or 48. It was somewhere around 50. And so about all different kinds of things. They have lots of sports podcasts, but they also have podcasts about movies, music, entertainment. The one that we plugged earlier this week is Docs That Rock, where these two women who are in Galway, Ireland, watch documentaries and then talk about them. And they were a lot of fun. I listened to one of their podcasts. So check out all those on bigheadsmedia.com. And then we are also part of stadiumscene.tv. That is a network where we are partnered with all kinds of sports content creators. They have tons of content, not just specific to podcasts, not just specific to sports. So they have blogs, YouTube videos, and all of that over on stadiumscene.tv. So check all of that out. Before we get into today's matches, we had a great question from Dirty Jers on Twitter. So he has interacted with us a bunch in the past. So we always appreciate him. But Matt, what have you been most impressed with in this World Cup? For Dirty Jers, it's been the goalkeeping. But for you, what's the thing that you've been most impressed with?
The Italian women's national team. They have basically come out of nowhere, exceeded all expectations. It looks like they're going to win their group. No one saw that coming.
Absolutely. And so they have been a huge surprise for me. For me, it's been some of the individual brilliance from some of the players. Coming in, I wasn't sure the level of play. Graham Hansen has been someone who has stuck out. Bunny Shaw, even though her team isn't necessarily the greatest, I've been really impressed with her. Rose Lavelle, I've been impressed with. Bonan Seya, I got her name wrong in the past. It's Bonan Seya on Italy. I'm impressed with her. And then Martins for Netherlands are just some of the players, but just some of the individual, especially dribbling brilliance that we've seen in this World Cup is the thing that I've been most impressed with. With all that being said, if you're watching live on YouTube, hello. It looks like we have Jeff here. And so his question, so might as well stick on the question front before we get to the matches. So his question today is concerning the revenge being asked of the England-Argentina 1998 World Cup. Beckham red versus Argentina. They lost on pens. And then Beckham comes back. And Jeff, this question is just a giant run-on sentence. So I appreciate you interacting here, but maybe a little bit of punctuation on the next comment. Beck's winning the penalty versus Argentina. So I guess he got his revenge. So his question today is, what are your most memorable moments of revenge in sports? So maybe because I haven't prepared for this at all, maybe we ruminate on that, unless Matt, you have something that comes to mind, because I don't have anything right now.
No, unless it's boxing.
All right. Well, hey, he said sports, so boxing could work, but let's think on it, and then we'll give our answer to that question, Jeff, maybe in between one of the games. But thank you for joining us. We record this thing live on YouTube, so you can come interact with us pretty much right after the matches end. And so we haven't watched a lot of these a second time, and so all of this analysis is based on one-time viewing, and we do our best, but just want to include that disclaimer. So, Matt, anything else? Are you ready to get into the matches from today?
I am ready to go.
Let's do it. So first match of the day, we had Japan taking on Scotland, and Japan ends up prevailing 2-1, but they more or less controlled the game throughout, and Scotland got somewhat of a fluky goal late. Matt, I had a late night, and we all have this, where I had a similar situation for the next game. So he's going to jump in with his thoughts every so often, but for the most part, I don't think you've seen a ton of the game, right?
I saw most of the first 8 minutes.
All right.
I was in and out for the next 7, and then I gave up.
All right. That is fine. Like I said, we're on the West Coast, so it's tough for us out here. But I thought Japan came out and were extremely aggressive, both offensively and defensively. In their match against Argentina, they were very passive. And in this match, they came out with a clearly different sort of ethics, work ethic, agenda. agenda that works better in this match. And so that was good to see. I thought that Cuthbert, the talented center striker for Scotland, was not really involved through the first 10 minutes. And then she started to wander a bit and then become more involved. But she was basically the only bright spot throughout Scotland's lineup pretty much throughout the day. Japan did better with mixing longer passes in with their short passing game. Again, they didn't do that nearly enough when they played Argentina, and it was good to see them doing that here. For Scotland, they couldn't get anything going offensively, and a lot of it was down to Japan's very organized press and defensive scheme, but also Scotland would just pass it amongst their defenders. I didn't think that their midfield did a great job of showing back and making themselves available, and then Scotland would more or less then kick a long ball back to the Japanese defense. And so it was good defense from Japan, but Scotland made it way too easy on them throughout the game, really, especially in the first half, but throughout the game, really. Scotland was sitting very far back defensively, and the first thing that I noted was the Japanese goal that came in the 23rd minute. So it was an absolute thunderstrike by Iwabuchi, but this came right after a very questionable offside call on Scotland. And I don't know if this was one of those delayed calls and the replay didn't show it properly, but the Scotland player was almost a yard onside in the replay that they showed. And so I don't know if the referee delayed her call and was calling another player offside, because I think it was Evans who ends up collecting the ball when the referee raises her flag, and she was nowhere near offside. And the reason I'm highlighting this is because Japan basically goes immediately the other way, and that's when they score. This was one of the first times where Scotland had a somewhat promising attack and got out, had a little bit of possession, and to have it be called offside, what I think was wrongly, I think really threw them off, and then Japan comes right down and scores. Now, having said that, Scotland's defense was not very good on this play. The ball gets worked out wide on the left, and then it gets crossed in the ball short hops and Corsi. Okay, yeah. So the ball gets crossed in, and the ball sort of bounces right before Corsi. And so, Matt, I know you highlighted her yesterday. I think she was possibly at fault for both of these goals here. On this one, the ball short hops and she gets ahead to it in a good way. She's intercepting it, but she doesn't clear it whatsoever. And she heads it. It goes maybe 5 yards, if that. And it just sits in a very dangerous area that then who picks it up? Endo picks up the ball and passes right across the top of the 18 for Iwabuchi, who fired it home. It goes right over the Scottish keeper, who was Alexander. They highlighted earlier in the match that she was only 5'7", which I guess is on the shorter side for a goalkeeper. It's not incredibly short, but she is on the shorter side, and it goes right over her head. Now, she was screened a little bit, but I thought maybe a taller keeper or someone who's a little bit more prepared saves that. She did have a pretty good match, specifically in the second half. She made a couple really nice saves, but this one was a tough one because it goes more or less right down the middle of the goal, right over her head. Matt, did you see any replays or anything to add so far?
I did not. No.
All right. Okay. Jeff, thank you for, okay. I didn't realize you had a character limit. So, okay. That explains the lack of punctuation there, but still appreciate you being here. 31st minute, Japan has a long ball after another set piece, and Alexander comes out. She gets nowhere near the ball on this, and Japan has a header that's cleared off the line by Little. And at this point, I was worried about Alexander's game. I thought that she was flailing a little bit and was in her own head after making some mistakes early. And I wanted to call her out because she really got her head right and played much better in the second half and as the game wore on. But I wanted to highlight this here. 35th minute, Scotland has a long ball to Evans out on the right. There's a dangerous chance created from this, but she slowed everything down. No. Okay. This could have been a dangerous chance. So I'm reading my notes and trying to remember what the hell I'm trying to say here. So Scotland did this on a number of occasions where they have a half opportunity is what I'll call it. And they were into somewhat of a dangerous position, and Japan was doing very well to get back into defensive shape, but Scotland was just dwelling on the ball sometimes when they got into dangerous areas. And this is another one where she's driving at goal, or at least she's off to the wing, and she just stops everything, allows Japan to get back into position. It gets poked away from her, and Japan goes immediately the other way. And then Japan scores right after this. So they send a long ball into the box. Corsi puts her hands onto Sugasawa. Now, this is one that I thought was a pretty weak penalty, but similar to the Italy-Australia call, if you're a defender, you can't put your hands on a forward. Anytime you do that, they're going to take that chance to go down. Matt, any thoughts, or did you see this play?
So I didn't see the play, but you're talking about the penalty. What was the Italy-Australia one where the Italian player went down early on?
No. Gamma grabbed Kerr and Kerr
Oh,
went
okay,
down.
okay,
Yeah, she
okay,
put both
okay,
her hands on her. So,
okay.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
I know people were saying that that was a soft call on Kerr, but again, I mean, if Gamma's going to put her hands on it, you leave it up to the forward and they're going to go down, and then it's in the referee's hands. And if the referee calls it, VAR can't overrule it. Even though it's soft, it's not a clear and obvious error because it could have potentially been a foul. And so on this one, Sugasawa gets behind Corsi. And so Corsi's coming back and she puts her hand on Sugasawa's shoulder and turns her ever so slightly. Like it's very minimal contact, but there is contact there. And Sugasawa sells it. She goes down and then converts the penalty right after it. But I didn't think that this was a penalty, but with the ref calling it, you can't overturn it. And so I think it has to stand, but I was not in agreement that this was a penalty. But having said that, I was in, somewhat of agreement when Kerr went down and the penalty was called, and you can't give the forward those opportunities. So that's where I stand on that. Matt, any thoughts?
Not really. I'm just trying to remember the Kerr penalty a lot, more. I guess the question I would have to ask you is was there more? Because there actually was some kind of noticeable adjustment on the Kerr penalty. Like, was there any more or was there less?
No, this was less. This was less than the Kerr penalty. And I don't know if that was... Yeah, and I don't know if this was... So number one, Corsi only uses one hand where Gamma had two. And also Kerr, I think, was closer. And so it didn't look quite as theatrical. Whereas the Sugasawa one, she touches her left shoulder as she's running by and does the arms up. Like it looked a lot more theatrical. And so I think that's playing in my mind as well.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I'll say. I did think that the referees, specifically in the first half, and they got better. This was probably the worst refereed match of the first half so far in the World Cup. I thought the ref was pretty slow to make calls in certain instances. I didn't think she got the penalty right. That offside call that I highlighted earlier was not right. And then on a number of occasions, the referee got really close to the play and was kind of getting in the way. And she fixed it in the second half, but I thought that it was worthy of mention here. Japan was really targeting long balls to their center forward, which is not something that you expect from Japan. You expect the short passing attack, and it was really effective because did not think Scotland was expecting that whatsoever, and it proved to be, it proved to be very effective. Scotland, I had nothing promising going forward, and attacks grinding to a halt because they're dwelling on the ball. Already mentioned that. Cuthbert started to wander late in the first half, and then 45th plus 1. So this is first half stoppage time. Ball gets worked to the end line by Japan. It's crossed low to Sugita by Endo, and as she's falling down, it hits the crossbar. And then Endo was onside because Scotland's center backs were dropping, and so they just looked kind of a mess, but they were bailed out that this had to hit the crossbar because it could have gone into half 3-0. Wow. Any other thoughts before we talk about the second half?
Not really. I know you just had two pretty negative things to say about Corsi, but they mentioned early on in the telecast that that Rachel Corsi now has her UEFA B license for coaching. And I had mentioned before in my kind of preview for players to watch today, which turned out to be not that great of an idea.
Well, she was someone to watch. She was involved.
She certainly was involved in the play. So she had never done any coaching or any training whatsoever before she actually agreed to train my daughter. And then she realized that she really loved it. She got involved with the Seattle Reign DA, the development academy here, and then she's involved with, actually she's not involved anymore with the Utah Royals, but she does stuff back home in Scotland. And I believe her family's they're involved in Aberdeen in the Scottish Premier League. So one of her brother's coaches, her dad was involved with the administration and coaching. So it's kind of an interesting tidbit.
So when Corsi leads Scotland to the World Cup title, all thanks to the Lefler family for getting her started on her journey. All right, so second half starts. Japan has a high line, and they're just compressing space for Scotland. Again, they did a really good job defensively throughout. Scotland just too slow. Their touches just were not clean enough against a defense like this. And we saw this with other teams, specifically Netherlands versus, who did they play? Was it they played Cameroon. In the Netherlands game, I remember the center forward was just not taking clean touches against a team that was pressing them. Matt, do you remember off the top of your head?
Yeah, who Netherlands played? Touches? Oh, who they played it?
Yeah, it was the Medina touches, but I was just trying to compare the teams. So not important to hear. Basically, Japan was doing an effective job of pressing and then getting back into shape very quickly. And when that's happening, Scotland needed to take quicker, cleaner touches, and that was not happening. Alexander on her line, I just noted that as a goalkeeper, generally you come out and you try to cut down angles, and Alexander was being very close to her goal line throughout the game. And I don't know if it was some of the things that I saw in the first half that made me hyper aware of her in the second, but again, I thought that was interesting, and ultimately she did very well in the second half. So I just wanted to note that. 58th minute, Japan has a counter, and Nakajima has a hard low shot to the far corner, and Alexander has a really good outstretched save and parried it around the post. And so this was a really good save by Alexander, and started to build a little bit of her confidence. Then we had some subs, not important to highlight. Some more subs. I thought Ross, who started for Scotland, she came out in the 76th minute, didn't do a whole lot throughout the game. So I wanted to highlight there. 78th minute, there's a scramble, and the ball ultimately falls to Cuthbert on the far side of the pitch, and she hits the post from an acute angle, but Scotland almost got a goal there. 79th minute, there was a penalty shout for Scotland. I think that ultimately no call was fine there. Emsley came on earlier in the match, and she only goes right. I noticed this last game, and again, she was just very dominant, and even when no matter what side she was on, there was just very little threat of her going the opposite direction. 82nd minute, no, these are subs again. Set off the chest, tries to pop it up. 84th minute, Cuthbert has a play where she settles it in the box. There's some traffic in there, and then she tries to kind of lift it up, so juggle it over her defender, and the defender's right there, and it hits the defender's hand. No penalty was called, no VAR. I'm okay with this no call because the defender was so close, and they're both right there. This wasn't a situation where the defender blocked a cross and was a couple yards away or anything like that. I'm ultimately okay with that penalty. Matt, I don't know if you saw, no penalty call, excuse me. Matt, I don't know if you saw the replay or just understanding the situation that it described. What do you think about that? Penalty.
So I did not see the replay. I do understand that kind of a situation. I think defenders are at such a disadvantage right now. Nobody really knows what a natural body position is, because clearly if you're standing and you're moving, like running around with your arms at your side is not a natural body position. We use our arms and our ears and our toes and all that stuff for balance. So with that said, like it literally should be like it should be a measurement call. I think that there's been a couple handball fouls, not necessarily penalties, that have been awarded. I can't remember. I think one was on Australia that I didn't think should be, because her arm was like right next to her body, but it was sticking out like maybe 4 inches, and then it bounced up off her foot into her arm and then bounced back down. I didn't think that should have been a handball, and that's kind of what this situation reminds me of from what you were saying. So.
Got it. Yep. And I'm sorry, with the time, I figured I would pull up the Netherlands thing just to circle back on that conversation.
New Zealand.
New Zealand. Thank you. All right. There we are.
I look at that.
All right. There we go. 88th minute, Scotland gets their goal, and this came really out of nowhere. Ichizi, the center back, the young center back for Japan, has the ball on the left side and is under almost no pressure whatsoever and just plays it right to Cleland, the attacker that had come on for Ross that I highlighted earlier for Scotland. When did she came on in the 76th minute. One touch and then rifled shot, upper 90, fantastic goal. But it really came about not through anything Scotland really created, and it was more or less Japan inflicting harm on themselves. And beyond that, I mean, Japan really closed the game out. 92nd minute, they had an opportunity. Sugita again had a chance, and Alexander, fantastic save, gets her hand up, claws it away over her head, and was worthy of a shout here. So I thought the Scotland really just too little too late, ultimately fell 2-1 in this one. Matt, anything else you want to add before we talk about the next match?
Nope.
All right, so we're going to do a little role reversal here because I was celebrating an anniversary with my wife. We went to a little breakfast, so I missed most of the first half in the Jamaica versus Italy game. So Matt's going to take the reins on this one and recap, and I'll chime in with my thoughts. But Matt, over to you. Let's you have the steering wheel at this point. Good luck.
Excellent. So prepare for a little bit more meta-analysis on a game. One thing I'm gonna start with is basically one thing I always try to look for, since I'm a lot newer to soccer than a lot of people. It's the first thing I always try to find out is like what formations are the teams running. There's almost always a graphic put out as to what formation they're running, and a lot of times it's not correct. So I look for verification of that. Italy definitely was going on attack and defending in a 4-3-3, and Jamaica almost always was in a 4-4-2. Every now and then they would push more numbers up in the first half anyway on attack, but not in defense. They were definitely trying to push people wide in terms of their shape. They were pretty narrow too. I noticed that Italy did like they did before. They were pretty expansive going forward. They were super organized in defense as well. I already said that Italy's been the surprise of the tournament for me, but they're really fun to watch. They're really organized. They're really well coached. It's been a pleasure to watch them. So, one thing I wanted to point out was in the 8th minute, that had to be one of the quickest VAR reviews, which I cannot understand what I wrote here because I misspelled it. But there was something about Bonansea. There was just a super quick VAR review. Then we get to the.
So on that, actually, because I saw a replay of it, and so with that, she has the ball. I think she's driving towards the end line, and the Jamaican defender comes through, and Bonansea does well to put her foot in front of the defender who's going for the ball, and so the Jamaican defender kicks her foot, kicks Bonansea's foot into the ball, and it goes out. I guess the referee maybe didn't call it, and then they called it from that. So is that the play?
Is that the one that leads to the penalty?
That was my assumption because I didn't see, but I assumed that was
actually
VAR.
Now that I look later, of course, I have like information in between like the pertinent information. It's pretty funny. So then we get to the penalty. Girelli lines up to take this. Schneider's in goal. You know, it looks like Italy's going to go ahead early in the match, 1-0, and then Schneider takes her kick. Girelli takes her kick, and then Schneider jumps to the left and then saves it. You know, everybody's celebrating. Then all of a sudden, no, it's waved off. And then you find out that Schneider gets a yellow card for not having 1 foot on the line, because that's the rule now. Like, it's kind of always been the rule. Or is it been 2 feet or 1 foot? Well, how's the rule changed on that?
So technically, it's always been that. They've just made it a point to. So the goalkeeper is not allowed to come off her line or his line. They're supposed to be 2 feet, and now it's been changed to clarify, I guess, 1 foot. But I think so. We don't curse a ton on this, but this was absolute bullshit. I could not believe that this was called back.
Do you know?
But Matt, continue.
So I watched the rest of the trajectory of her dive. If she had kept a foot on the line, she would have slammed her head into the post. That's how far to the left she got. So she didn't really go forward much. It was almost like she took an accidental touch, or step forward. Now, it was really hard because eventually she ended up about 3 feet in front of the line. But I'm not sure if that step happened after the kick was taken or as she was meeting the ball. I don't know, but one of the things that always really, really, really bothers me is one of the most iconic moments in women's sports is when the United States, beat China in 1999 to win that Women's World Cup. The reason why Brandi Chastain was able to make that game-winning free kick is because Brianna Scurry had made a save before. Now, Brianna Scurry was 2 yards off her line. She was 6 freaking feet in front of her line because she was literally on the run up, taking 2 steps forward and then jumping. She was cutting down so much angle, and this has always bothered me. They give her so much credit for such an amazing save, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, it was not allowed. I mean, she even said she recently did a podcast with Roger Bennett. I don't know if you listened to that.
I haven't heard that. No.
Yeah, and so she said basically, I mean, she knew what she was doing was wrong, but she basically said either the referee was going to tell me not to do it or not, and so she basically took her chance on the first kick. The referee didn't tell her to stop, so she basically continued to do it. But yeah, but this wasn't anywhere near as egregious as that. And also, the other thing about all of this is that an Italian attacker was even further into the box than Schneider was off her line. So VAR wanted to, rule on anything. It should have been 2 fouls, just let it play on. But I did not like this whatsoever. But I'm in agreement. It gets retaken, and then, Girelli scores.
So I was going to actually call that the save of the day, of course, but no. So then gets waved off. Then Drelly scores, like you were saying. And then in the 25th minute, Italy scores again off a corner. It's a low bending ball that bounces into the box. Jamaica can't clear. Basically, what happened with a lot of the corners, at least in the first half, was Jamaica kind of didn't move. They sort of ball watched, and if the ball wasn't near them, they just said, oh, okay, somebody else is going to get it. They were never checking their shoulders in the box, so if there were runners going anywhere, they weren't marked. So because of poor defending, Girelli puts it in off the far post, or puts it in near the far post off her abdomen. Let's see. And then I wrote down in the 27th minute, Italy had 6 shots. Jamaica had none. In the 27th minute, there's another corner kick that basically the same thing happens. Jamaica stands there, looks around, waits for somebody else to clear it. That then goes off the crossbar. Now in the 28th minute, off that clear off the crossbar, that actually ignites a Jamaican counterattack. My notes are hilarious. They are really funny. I'm like, what am I talking about? So in the 28th minute, Gray is down in the far post. I don't know who dribbled it down the right side, but Gray is lined up on the left side. And then Gamma, the Italian center back, makes a phenomenal diving header save to put it just wide of her own goal. Now, Gray probably would have put that on frame, and it did not look like the keeper was in position. And then on the subsequent corner, like around the 29th minute, that's when Jamaica gets its first 2 shots. And if I am correct, that were the only 2 shots that Jamaica had in the first half. Let's see. I noticed in the 34th minute, after a few corners, that Italy kept trying to go shorter, not on the ground or anything, but just shorter in their corners. They weren't even really driven. They were just like, hey, let's put it near post and then see what's happening, but not even near the post. It was oftentimes like 8 or 10 yards out.
Okay, interesting.
There was one thing where when Giuliani and Gamma ran into each other, they were talking about how there was nothing going on and it was just Gamma running into her own keeper, and so that wasn't really much of a thing. But Bunny Shaw, basically, if Gamma would have been a man, what Bunny Shaw did by accident would have put Gamma on the ground for quite a bit longer. It didn't quite hit like in the groin, but she took a large swing at the ball and then hit Gamma between the legs in the upper part of her left thigh. And then it hurt. I mean, because it was a really forceful blow. Gamma goes slightly off her step and then ends up running into Giuliani. So basically, and then the commentators, I'm like, it's obvious, you guys, but the commentators didn't say it, and so didn't say anything about it. So I was kind of wondering what they were looking for.
So was that a foul, or
no? It wasn't a foul. It was never called.
Did she get the ball, or no? She completely missed the ball and just
completely missed the ball.
Interesting, because in the 58th minute we had the bicycle kick where she kicked her in the face. She only got a yellow, which I thought was probably deserving of a red.
Oh, completely deserving of a red. I didn't want Bunny Shaw to not play, but I don't want her to be dangerous.
Well, exactly. And so, yeah, at a certain point you have to, I know she was good and I know we want to see her play, but she can't be doing that. And she could have, right. I mean, fortunately Gamma was able to continue and there wasn't a situation where, she had any cuts, but she really made contact with Gamma's face there.
It was dangerous. Like then she kept checking her teeth.
Yeah.
After that. So my first half summary was, it just like defensively, Jamaica didn't check their shoulders, even when it wasn't on corners, stuff like that. So when runners were free to run in between the Jamaican players, even though oftentimes the German defense didn't look like it was positioned poorly, they just weren't aware. And then I thought that Italy shouldn't be winning that many balls in the box because Italy was shorter than Jamaica and frankly, probably not as strong. So clearly there was something going on with how the Jamaicans were playing. Both teams were expansive going forward, I believe, as I said before. And one thing that I noticed toward the end of the half was Jamaica, and I had forgotten about this from their previous game, they're really not afraid to send numbers forward. They're like, hey, we're going to bomb. We're going to go for this. Italy continued to look organized on defense.
Yeah, and I will say Jamaica, they did bomb numbers forward, and then also when they decided to press, the press was very uncoordinated. I noticed that
It
I
was,
noted
yeah.
this last game, and yet again, they're committed and they have a drive to get forward and do the press, but it's not coordinated. And Italy kind of easily passed through that, and then Italy has opportunities going the other way. And the other thing I wanted to note is that Jamaica reminded me a lot of South Africa from the standpoint of that they tried to play, like they tried to pass through the middle. They tried, wasn't just kick it long and chase after it after Bunny Shaw. They really tried, and they're just not the same technical quality of a lot of teams at this World Cup. But I wanted to give them props for at least trying in certain instances, whether it's the press or whether it's in possession. They're trying out there, but they just simply don't have the technical quality.
So I wanted to bring up a point. Did they say that it Jamaica was 6 years without a women's national team? Or was it 2 years?
I think it was 2. I don't know for a fact, but I don't know actually. I'm not sure. I know they've had issues with funding, and the Marley family has stepped up, but I don't know the exact numbers.
For some reason, I think they said 6, and all I could think about was, so the technical ability, individual technical ability of the Jamaican national team was better than I thought it would be. It wasn't great. Okay, a lot of them didn't have great first touches, but I expected it to be worse than it was, based on watching a lot of club soccer in the Seattle area. So that was pretty interesting. So all I could think about was, if Jamaica actually were to invest in their women's national team, Jamaica could be a powerhouse.
Absolutely. We're kind of seeing it again. I don't like to compare to the men's side, but the men's side is starting to really churn out talent, whether it's Leon Bailey and, they're becoming, in that second tier of CONCACAF nations, whereas previously they've been in third or fourth tier. I mean, they're right there below the US and Mexico. And then historically, over the last few years, it's been Costa Rica and Honduras, Panama, if you want to throw them in there. I mean, Jamaica it might have the third brightest future of any team in CONCACAF right now on the men's side. And so just to your point, the reason I'm saying that is that if they commit resources, they could have a similar situation with their women's team.
Well, Bunny Shaw developed somewhere. She didn't just get this good in college. I mean, granted, she's a physical phenom because she's 5'11" and ridiculously strong.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I think, I cannot remember, because I did not know at the time of when Jorelli gets her hat trick.
46th minute. Yeah. So at this point, I'm watching the game now.
All right. Go nuts.
Okay, so
all you.
All right, so 46, she gets her hat trick basically right after halftime. So Italy has the ball in the right corner, and the Italian defender goes to drop it back and is pressured by the Jamaican defender, but she gets a toe poke on it, and then Gigliano, who had, I believe, she had 3 assists in this match, just lofts a ball into the box, and Schneider badly misplays it. She doesn't get it at its highest point, so Schneider, the Jamaican goalkeeper, comes out to try to punch it, and she tries to punch it when the ball is basically shoulder height.
Right.
And so Jorelli comes through and gets her head on it, even though Schneider can use her hands, into an open net, and then that's 3-0, and the game is more or less over. At that point. 51st minute, I noted that Italy played the ball out for, I think, a Jamaican defender's injury, and Jamaica just didn't give the ball back. This is the second time we've seen this. I think China did it against Germany. And in this instance, I think it was legit just a miscommunication, but still, I don't know how this happens. Like, usually, I mean, the teams are very clear, hey, you need to give the ball back. So I wanted to point it out. All the way. Oh, and then the bicycle kick happens 58th. I think we kind of already touched on it. What do you think? Should it have been a red on Bunny Shaw?
I think no question it should have been a red. That was just wanton carelessness.
Yeah.
It was extremely dangerous. Everybody knows that Bunny Shaw uses her strength and her physical ability to get things done. That's not a hidden. But to just be so careless about how you're doing it is honestly a bit terrifying. Because when you're losing, I think you kind of have a bit of a what the heck attitude. And maybe going forward, because it's going to be your last game. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Jamaica's not going to advance out of the group. So in the last game, if she continues to try that stuff because they want to score a goal, then it could be even more dangerous and then affect, somebody from a team that has a good chance going forward. So yeah, it should have been a red card.
Yeah, so 58. This all comes about in the 58th minute, and this comes about from the goalkeeper sort of dwelling on the ball, and Bunny Shaw doing well to pressure the goalkeeper, forces
Right.
the turnover, and then there's just kind of mad scramble, and the ball bounces up, and she attempts the bicycle kick, kicks Gamma in the face. I don't know how much we want to recap the other goals, but I do want to at least highlight the one that comes about in the 71st minute. So Italy has some possession. It's eventually worked. I have it listed here to the right, but I want to say that it was actually to the left.
It was.
Yeah. So sometimes I write the wrong direction
That's
when I'm
fine.
writing a lot. So it's on the right, and Boatin, who was a substitute, drives inside and passes it to Gali, and Jamaica just doesn't pressure her whatsoever.
And there are 4 players. She just
Yeah.
dribbles past them, and they're all ball watching, and none of them step to the ball.
Yeah, and so then she takes a touch and then just absolutely rifles a shot into the upper 90. Schneider is at full extension, gets a fingertip to it, but there's just way too much power on the shot. It goes into the upper 90, makes it 4-0, and then, they get a fifth late on. Really good pass by Giuliano. And Gali gets a brace. And overall, for how poorly the scoreline was for Jamaica, kind of like South Africa yesterday, I was impressed with their performance. They clearly have ideas that they're trying to implement. They're just not technically there yet. So that was the last thing I wanted to highlight here, with it ultimately finishing 5-0. Any other thoughts, Matt?
No, I think that just kind of backs up what I was saying. Imagine if they actually get time and resources to develop. With what we're seeing here, it probably wouldn't even need to be that much. Just some facilities for them to consistently play on, getting them all in one area, and maybe like getting them jobs that they can work part-time. And then, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I was still impressed that Blackwood was still trying, even though they were down 5-0. They really want that goal.
Yeah,
and they're not going to give up.
They did not quit. I mean, similar to Panama and I'm not going to compare back to the Men's World Cup, but yeah, they're not giving up. So I'm in agreement with you. Let's do the questions now.
Okay.
And so Jeff's question from earlier is basically, what are your most memorable revenge moments from sports? I am trying so hard to rack my brain. I cannot think of one. But Matt, what was yours that came to mind for boxing, or if you have another one?
I cannot remember what I was thinking about for boxing. There was, yeah.
All right, so we'll try to come back to that one. So he has a follow-up here. So if we didn't want to do that one, this is a fun, different one. Which person from history who you share their initials do you admire most? So I'm not certain off the top of my head, but Matt, do you have one?
No.
So ML. Okay, we'll both think on that. We'll circle back. I thought maybe we could have a little break here, but
hold on.
We're too silly or stupid to think and talk about soccer. So we'll circle back on that one with you, Jeff.
So okay, I just was thinking about this. This isn't really okay, so here's, I'm just gonna read some of the top 20 revenge moments in sports from Bleacher Sports in 2011. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's not cool.
Okay. Anyone stick out?
We're not going to do that one.
Okay.
Joe Montana when he beat the 49ers. Okay, that's fine. Because he used to be the 49ers quarterback, and then they got rid of him. Yeah, this isn't going to go very well. So,
okay. All right. We'll circle back on that one. You know what? I will take Donkey Kong.
It's a great question, though.
I will take Donkey Kong because he's a cultural icon. And even though he's not real, I'm going to cop out and say I'm proud to share initials with Donkey Kong. So how about that one? Matt will think and give a better answer, though.
I don't even know an athlete who has my initials. I mean, these are great questions, but I just have no idea.
Yeah. What's his name? No. All right. Whatever. All right. So England versus Argentina happened. And to be quite honest, I don't have a ton of notes from this because basically the game existed the same way throughout. And even though England prevailed 1-0, even after England scored, Argentina basically didn't change whatsoever. And so, again, I don't have a ton of notes, but Matt, what were your overarching thoughts on the game before we break down maybe some things that happened?
Yeah, it was kind of, it was very similar to Argentina, Japan, except England was physical and more attack minded. I mean, I guess those are two pretty large things, but the effect was almost the same. I mean, Argentina largely nullified. Well, I mean, let's face it though. England should have put that penalty in. That was a terrible penalty kick. It was not good. It was right in the zone of safety for the keeper. It wasn't that far away. To her left, it was right in the dive zone. Like, she ends up in that position if she dives, even if she's not trying to save it. So it was not a good penalty. I think beyond that, no, it just Argentina bunkered. They were slappy. They were foully. They wasted time. You know what I mean? All the stuff that you told me about. Yeah. So
Yeah, so I noted within 10 minutes, Argentina was already delaying the game. They were very slow on restarts.
Right.
The goalkeeper was holding the ball, I think, for at least 15 seconds on most things. By the second half, she was holding them for about 20 seconds, where she would get the ball, she would fall over. She wouldn't get up for about 8 seconds when goalkeepers are only supposed to hold the ball for 6. And then by the time it was off her foot, it was 20 seconds. I thought that it was interesting. England didn't really react to that. And so I feel like most teams will get frustrated by that. They'll start complaining to the referee. I want to give England props for not falling into the trap of, Argentina wanted them to be frustrated. They weren't complaining to the referee. And I thought England did a good job, at least on that front. I noted that Argentina's low block. What's up?
Nothing. Did you hear that?
I did.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right. So no worries. Argentina's low block may have been the lowest that we've seen in the tournament, and not even just low block. They had 11 players within probably 30 yards to 35 yards of their own net when they would kind of have their line of confrontation. Like, they just had no interest in sort of pressing very high. And, I just thought that was really interesting. Again, from the opening moments, they were just very low defensively and not overly concerned with putting England under too much pressure until they got within 30 yards of their net. Thoughts on that, Matt?
Well, one of the things, just kind of going back to the general Argentinian tactics, I was kind of horrified by how hard they were fouling Lucy Bronze. That's kind of like that was a mandate for the team. Jodie Taylor has a tendency to lose the ball at her feet. I've watched her live for the Rain numerous times. Great player, really fast, really passionate, really good at making runs. Has a tendency to go offside sometimes. But in terms of like getting through that block and kind of like setting it up, I thought that Argentina was really trying to set a physical tone to almost make it so that the English players maybe didn't want to go into their zone. I don't know. Is that actually a tactic? You just make it such a living hell that you don't want to go in there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you
Well,
get kicked a bunch. I mean, eventually, yeah. But the problem was everyone in Argentina was kicking them, so England didn't want to go. Yeah,
right.
It's an interesting strategy, and I mean, it definitely works. And they were extremely physical throughout. And I texted you, or we talked about this on the phone before we went live. I thought Argentina was then, because they were so physical and more or less fouling on every play, they could get away with their little fouls because they weren't as egregious as some of the other fouls. And and we kind of saw the same thing happen with them against Japan. And so we got to keep an eye out for them against Scotland in the last one. Yeah. So that'll be a physical battle. And could get ugly in that one. 27th minute, England earns a penalty, and this was a definite penalty. It was a great long ball out by Houghton, who worked it right out to Mead, and Mead does really well to cut it back fairly quickly to Greenwood. I actually thought Greenwood should have hit it first time across the face of the net. She takes a touch, ends up taking a second touch, and I think is almost bailed out by the foul, because I think the ball is either going out of bounds or she's not going to be able to cross it into a dangerous area. But they get the penalty, and then Paris steps up, Nikita Paris, and Correa saves it full extension, goes, she doesn't go really early, and so she kind of almost reacts to the shot and has to go pretty far. Yeah, it's at a good height, like you touched on earlier, but it's still a relatively good save, and then off the post. So I wanted to say that. Any other thoughts on the penalty, Matt?
No.
All right, 41st minute, Kirby gets a foot on the ball, so the ball bounces to her. I think she intercepts the pass, and then the ball is bouncing, and right before an Argentinian player can get in the way, she has a toe poke through ball to Mead, and Mead is one-on-one with the goalkeeper. She shoots low and hard to the far post, and Correa gets a foot on the ball. Correa had a fantastic game throughout, but I wanted to highlight this save. So that was all I had from the first half. Any other thoughts from the first half, Matt?
No.
Okay. All right. Jeff's got some suggestions. Oh, I like Matt LeBlanc for Matt Lefler. That's a good one there. I also thought of one, Dirk Kuyt for me. Liverpool player, hard worker. I like to think of myself as that as a soccer player. So that's a great shout for people with initials of DK. Sorry for those who may
Isn't
not.
Matt LeBlanc the actor on Friends?
Oh yeah, Joey from Friends.
Okay, good. I was making sure that wasn't something that I was missing, that he was an athlete or something.
No. He said anyone from history. So
okay, okay.
Yeah. All right, so we'll keep thinking on that, but back to the game real quick. So there's a little flash picture-in-picture action. Second half starts. England has a set piece. First thing that I noted, the ball was cleared to the top of the box, or it wasn't really cleared, it just bounces to the top of the box. Nikita Paris, gets a half volley, absolutely crushes it, but it goes straight down the middle of the net. Still, having said that, Correa does very well to get a hand to that and make another excellent save. Again, she had a really good game. 60th minute, though, Argentina concedes. So on this play, Argentina actually sent some numbers forward, and this was one of the first times in the match where they decided to take a calculated risk, and they were ultimately, made to pay for that. And it comes about from a pretty careless turnover by Benitez in the middle of the park.
Right.
She wasn't under a ton of pressure. She was under a little bit, and she kind of just dribbles herself into pressure. England turns it over. They counter pretty quickly, and eventually Kirby has the ball and is driving at the Argentinian defense. And Argentina has numbers back. And I think where they made a mistake is that the right back from Argentina thinks that she has to guard Kirby when there's another center back there who's not really marking anybody and could have very easily taken Kirby on the ball, and the right back could have shaded a little bit more towards Mead, but ultimately the right back gets sucked in. Kirby does well to draw her in and then lays it off to Mead, who's pretty much wide open, and then she gets a first-time ball across the top of in between the 6-yard box and the penalty spot. Taylor's on the back end, holds her run, relatively easy finish. But Matt, any thoughts on the goal here?
So I actually thought England's counter was one of the slower counters I've ever seen. It wasn't that slow, but to continually be going forward, they were not in a hurry. And I was almost surprised that they weren't working harder to take advantage of the Argentinian numbers being forward. So that's pretty much the only thing I have.
Okay, and the one last thing I have is that I think it's Comedi, the center back for Argentina. Is that her name, Matt? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Comedi. Here, let me pull up her name just to get it right. I thought that she's played fairly well over the last few matches, but yeah, Comedi is her name. On this play, she gets back into position and then has this move where she was standing, what's the right way to say this? Perpendicular to the end line. And then as Mead is crossing the ball, she turns her hips and then becomes parallel. And as soon as she does that, she can't get back and the ball just slips right by her to Taylor. And so again, I don't think that she expected the ball to be in behind her, and she needed to kind of keep her hips perpendicular. So she could have potentially gotten there. I'm not saying she definitely would have, but it was just kind of perfect timing from Taylor to hit it when she did, and Comedi to have her hips turn that way. And then everything else from the second half, I just have substitutions noted because really the game didn't change much. I thought Argentina was very content with a 1-0 loss. On a handful of occasions, they maybe tried to get forward a little bit, but they continued to defend in a low block. They didn't press very high. And I don't have anything else from the second half. Matt, do you have anything? Matt? Thought we lost you.
No, you didn't lose me. I did a voice search for Google.
Okay.
It's telling me about tomorrow's World Cup schedule.
Okay. All right. I appreciate you trying to be prepared.
So I was like, oh no, you asked me right as she's talking. And I'm like, mute. Oh no.
So nothing else from this game?
No.
All right. Nothing else. All right. Let's get to our of the days here. So first up, save of the day. Matt, what was your save of the day today?
My save of the day was the Correa save in the 51st minute. Off the blast from about 12 yards out when Paris shot it through that lane. That was a great save.
Yeah, that was a great save. And I have that noted. I have a couple different ones. So I will go with the give Alexander her props. 92nd minute. It's late in the match, and Sugita has a shot. She comes out off her line, cuts down the angles, and gets her hand up pretty quickly. Great reaction save. And so I'll give her props on that. That'll be my save of the day. Matt, what about goal of the day? What was your goal of the day?
My goal of the day was the England goal. It was really pretty. Just a nice work, down the field, switch it from one side of the field to the other, go end line, cross it. Jody Taylor buries it. It just was a really nice to watch play, so I enjoyed it. Nothing exceptional. It wasn't a banger or anything. Just that's my goal of the day. I was thinking about going with oh my gosh, was it Golly's first goal? The banger.
Yeah, so that's going to be mine.
Okay,
so
I'll be quiet.
Let me don't steal it from me.
Right,
so as a former center midfielder, I love bangers from outside the box. I love to hit the ball, and so I'm always going to be partial to those. This one, 71st minute. This is the one where she has acres of space, about 22 yards out, just absolute thunderbolt into the upper 90. Schneider gets a hand to it, but can't keep it out. So that is going to be my goal of the day. But Matt, what was your moment of the day?
More on the England thing, just the England win. I really thought England were titans of this tournament. It's nice to see them get 2 1-0 wins. They've outplayed both their opponents, but just to kind of come through kind of tough games where they've had to grind to show that like mental fortitude and that belief to just find a way to win. I thought that they were going to come out of this match as 3-0 winners. That's what I thought. But they won at 1-0. And as you said, points are points.
And it's honestly better to go through adversity in the early stages of the World Cup, have to deal with that and come through on the other side. That's going to bode well for them later on. So that's a really good point. My moment of the day is actually something I didn't even witness live, but that VAR review on the penalty call, I'm incredulous at. And so that's going to be my moment of the day because it's going to generate buzz. It's got to generate talking points. We're recording before really watching any of the shows and talking heads talk about it, but I can't believe that was called back. And so this is the one where Jamaica goalkeeper Schneider saves the penalty on Giotti. What was her name? Gianni?
Girelli.
Thank you, Girelli. And it's called back because she's a foot off the line. Like, I can't believe that was ultimately called back. So that's my moment of the day because it's going to generate a lot of talking points. Let's get to tomorrow's previews. So we only have 2 matches taking place tomorrow. First one, we have Netherlands taking on Cameroon at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we have Canada taking on New Zealand at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So pretty long break in between the games tomorrow. Matt, what do you think is going to happen in Netherlands versus Cameroon?
Netherlands 4-0 win. That's what I think. Maybe 4-1. Right. I think Netherlands is going to really organize coming out of their first game. I think they're going to pull it together more, figure some stuff out. I think they're going to be really, really, really ready to go for this match, and they're going to hit Cameroon hard.
All right. I have it being a Netherlands victory as well. I think that they're going to try to involve Van de Senden more than they did last time. I thought that she didn't have enough space to run into. And so they needed to play balls into her earlier so that she could get behind the defense. And so I'm going to be looking for that. And obviously I'm excited about Martins. I was excited about her performance last time. I thought she was one of the lone bright spots in sort of the 1v1 play. And then I'm going to be interested to see how Miedema responds. I thought that she got herself into dangerous positions last match, but wasn't taking those clean touches. If she's able to do that, and ultimately she might become the record goal scorer for Netherlands at 22 years old. Wow. So she's someone else who I'm excited about, and I expect Netherlands to prevail in that one. But what do you think about Canada versus New Zealand, Matt?
I'm just going to give a scoreline because that's what I'm going to do today. 2-1 Canada. I think it's going to be a really tough match. I think Canada is going to find a way to prevail in this match. Both teams are well coached. Both teams are, well, they're talented. I think Canada's more talented. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great 9 a.m. match tomorrow for us anyway. Or no, actually it's noon. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be the more competitive match. I'm in agreement with you. Clearly, I think it's going to be really tight. I mean, New Zealand pushed Netherlands right to the brink at the end. They were very organized defensively and made it tough. They didn't really commit any numbers forward but they really made life difficult. Who was the little forward? Not Rosie White, the other player. God, I don't know why I keep closing my phone when I need the lineups up. Gregorius, I was really impressed with from New Zealand. And, I think it's going to be a tight match. I give the slight edge to Canada, but I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up as a draw because I'm not writing off New Zealand in that one. Matt, who is the player you're looking out for tomorrow, the player you want to highlight?
All right. So how about you go first because I have two and I don't want to accidentally take yours.
Okay, well, I have two because I'm always prepared. But you know who I'm going to go for? I'm going to go less flashy. I had a flashy one, but I'm going to go less flashy. I'm going to say Desiree Scott. I was really impressed with her for Canada. Love a defensive center midfielder. She's going to be providing cover. She's going to be a hub for them in the center of the park, and a lot of their shape comes about because of her. And so she is someone who's going to be so positionally disciplined and someone to watch out for. May not get her name on the score sheet, but is going to do a lot of the dirty work. So watch out for Desiree Scott tomorrow.
So I'm going to go then with another Canadian, Christine Sinclair. She's 3 goals away from tying the international scoring record of Abby Wambach. I want her to do it. She's always faced tougher opposition. She doesn't basically really ever face cream puff teams. So everybody wanted to come play the United States. It didn't, because they thought it was a great way to expose their up and coming teams to the best. Canada didn't have as much money to pay for other associations to come and play in Canada like the United States did. So basically I'm giving like this long, basically deposition as to why I think what Christine Sinclair has done is so impressive. So that's what's going on. So basically she's doing the same thing that Abby Wambach did under harder conditions. Granted, she stayed in the game longer, but yeah.
So I'm hoping 2 Canadians to watch out for.
Yes, 2 Canadians.
All right, so keep your eye on that Canada team, and should be a fun day tomorrow. Again, 2 good matchups, and I think that's it for the podcast today. Matt, anything else you wanted to highlight?
No, that sounds good. This has been fun.
Right, Jeff has reached back out. He said U.S. hockey versus USSR back in the 1980s could be a revenge game, and then U.S. Olympic basketball. I don't follow basketball a ton. I know usually we win the gold medal, and maybe one time we didn't, and then we bounce back. But I don't even really consider that much of a revenge because a lot of times we don't even send the strongest side to the Olympic basketball tournament and still kind of generally roll. I know that's changing, but those would be mine. Matt, anyone ML initials come to mind and or revenge that you wanted to highlight before I wrap up?
No. I'll come up with some for tomorrow, though.
All right, there we go. Jeff,
I'm not going to be back until Monday, so.
Yes. So thank you for bringing that up. We appreciate Matt being here during the week, but it's just going to be yours truly on the weekend podcast. So get excited, everybody. It's going to be me talking to myself for 45 minutes. Please come hang out with me on YouTube. So I'm not just talking to myself. That would be a lot of fun. If you liked what you heard here, please give us a review on iTunes, hopefully 5 stars. And we would greatly appreciate that. Follow us on Twitter at BT Soccer Pod. Send an email, bros.talking.soccer@gmail.com if you want to get in contact with us. Join our Slack channel or hit me up again on Twitter or send that email. If you want to join our Slack channel, chat with soccer fans all over the world, talking about all kinds of different soccer topics. Make sure to visit our website, brostalkingsoccer.com, where you can read about myself, my 2 brothers, check out our past episodes, go visit our store link. That is it. Thank you so much for being here. Matt, thank you most importantly for being here talking to me so I'm not yammering to myself. So thank you.
It's been fun every day.
Yes, it has been a ton of fun. Listeners, thank you so much for being here. I'll be back tomorrow with our Day 9 recap. Have a great rest of your day. Happy Friday. Go enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. See you, everybody. Jeff, thanks for being here too. See you, man.